LinkedIn, we are on here. Let's go.
He challenged me. He said, you should meet 2 or 3 people every day.
We're talking about how to level up on LinkedIn and engagement, being the go-giver, the idea that being open to opportunity.
We all deal with challenges, but how do you overcome that?
Master Connector with Steve Spiro and Cameron Toth is live on air.
Yes, we are. Here we go. So everybody has a story to tell. If you don't believe you have a story to tell, we're going to try to correct that for you today because you do have an amazing story. Do you know how to tell it well? That is a serious question, but we're going to get into all of that. Steve, my main man, you ready to start us off on this topic today?
Absolutely, 100%. Hey, what's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. So here's a question. How do you engage clients and build better connections? Would you like to illustrate a point in a more vivid, memorable way, and increasing the chances that the message is understood and remembered? Stories have the capacity to capture the attention of the audience, evoke emotions, and motivate action. Additionally, stories allow us to bring abstract concepts to life and make them more tangible, making it easier for the listeners to see the point being made. We all have a story to tell, every one of us. And you've got to believe, I'm telling you've got to believe that yours is worthy of being told and being heard. I found that being authentic and making sure to be others focused when crafting and telling my story has really helped me build a pretty big community. So you combine that with some kind of grit or, to overcome obstacles. And man, that's a powerful, powerful message. And that's why movies like Rudy, Rocky, Braveheart, and so on and so forth are so popular. Today's topic and guest is going to captivate you. And she's amazing. And so I can't wait to dig into this topic. I know we've got a lot. Cameron, great job with some of the the graphics to kind of hype up the show. You did an amazing job. But if you're ready for an introduction here, and how Cameron does, man, he is our Michael Buffer here. But so just type in the chat, who dis, okay? HOOHODIS, who dis, okay? And we're gonna have Cameron bring up our guest. Cameron, I'll turn it to you, sir. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to throw Amy up onto the screen here. She's going to be the backdrop for this amazing bio intro. Amy, thank you for being here. Amy Blaschka has made a career offering stories as a service. From her degree in film to her 3 decades spent branding products, places, and people to founding her strategic writing practice, Amy has always understood the power of weaving a compelling tale. These days, she's a social media ghostwriter. Yep, that's a thing. Who helps founders craft their stories to communicate and connect better, magnifying their reach and impact. Amy also writes engaging, original, and authentic career stories for her clients to position them for success and change how others perceive, pay, partner with, and promote them. As a longtime leadership contributor for Forbes, Amy covers personal transformation and its impact on career growth. She also regularly creates and shares original content through a popular Illuminate Me and Momentum newsletters and active social media channels. Please welcome to the show the explorific, the amazing storyteller, Amy Blaschka.
Thank you for having me. That was quite the introduction. Wow.
We try. So, Steve, get us jumped into this conversation here. And I just want to shout out Yolanda. Yolanda, I just finished booking my plane tickets. I'm headed to Dallas, and Frisco's right outside of Dallas. I think I'm staying at Marriott in Frisco. So I'm excited. We're going to have to set up lunch date. I'm going with my daughter to connect, Steve. Big
Nice.
conference for
Start
Master
it-
Network. So
Start 'em young.
Alexander's
Start 'em
headed
young with
down there. So
connecting.
we should be able to connect with a Master Networks community person in person. So I'm looking forward to that, Yolanda. We're going to have to set that up. And Matthew Stein is checking in from NYC. If you are watching this, don't be a LinkedIn lurker. Make sure you're getting into the comments. Make sure you're letting us know a little bit about your story. And that starts with, or can start with, where you're from. Let us know.
So before we get into the question here, I just want to set up and tell a little bit of our story. I know, Cameron, you put a little video together and a little written word on the story. So as you guys know, shy, introverted, born and raised monks, picked on, bullied, but went into the advertising industry eventually, and then throughout that also got into the martial arts, a couple black belts, and eventually met through a very successful entrepreneur, I met somebody who was a very successful entrepreneur who took me on his wing, caught me on a path of self-development, books, audios, and networking. And that networking journey kind of started. And what happened was, started to go to different networking groups and wound up through a good friend, Rob Genovese, got introduced to Master Networks and met Cameron at the very, very, very first Master Networks I went to. I believe it was the very first, or one of the first. Anyway, we kind of exchanged information and had a follow-up call and got a chance to learn a little bit about Cameron. I was impressed with him, and it turned out I found out he was doing a show called the Biz Dev Live and wanted checking out that show. He actually invited me on, and I was so impressed with what he was doing outside of the event catering staffing business that he does. But throughout this whole LinkedIn journey, I think I started in 2008. I wound up finding out later on about roughly 2.5 years ago that they had a LinkedIn Live thing. And I know Cameron was doing live through YouTube. So I put my application in and for just for kicks and giggles, but I got approved. And then I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with this? It was completely over my head. Listen, shy, introverted kid, master connector, now public speaker and doing shows. I mean, it just felt so out of the realm of possibility. So I reached out to Cameron. I said, hey, what do you know about LinkedIn Live? He's like, dude, man, I'm trying to get on LinkedIn. And I said, I got approved. He's like, I said, dude, he said, we should collaborate. I'm like, man, I was hoping you should say that. So that's what happened. I mean, pretty much that's the story. And that was in November 2020, kicked it off. And today is our 104th episode. We've had amazing guests, Amy being one of those guests. So that's a little bit of our story, how this whole thing came together. Since it's about storytelling, I felt like,
I love that, Steve, that you added, because I was like, at that point, I was like, I can't get on this LinkedIn Live thing. So it's timing plays a role in everything, right? There's a little bit of luck. And so it was a good thing for me and Steve. It gave me that extra emphasis because partnering with somebody is scary. Talk about, challenging stories that you've heard of through your life, right? Partnering with somebody is always a little.
And we are so different too.
Right.
So different. Like night and day, oil and vinegar. I mean, we get along, but there's times where it's like, I think I probably annoy Cameron. Cameron annoys me sometimes. It's partnership, right? I mean, it's like a marriage, right? It's never going to be perfect, but it's a match made in heaven for sure. No doubt about it. So anyway, we don't want the show to be about that, but I wanted to just use that an opportunity to tell the story. And Amy, now we're going to get into asking you some questions. But before we do that, I want the community again. We're LinkedIn participants, so put in #story. And again, if you have a story you want to put in the comments, feel free to put something in there. We love when people are participating. But Amy, we'd love for you to tell us in a couple of minutes or less, okay, your story. And, because you're a storyteller, we know that you're going to do a great job of sort of illustrating what kind of good looks like, if you will. So
no pressure.
Just put her on the spot, Steve.
Putting on the spot. She's all on, but she's a pro.
Well, I'm good at other people's stories, but I will tell you, mine begins as a very shy child. No one that meets me today ever believes that. But I was literally the kid in the corner writing the stories, observing, watching other people, kind of incorporating that, like a creative kid for sure. Now, I've had a very nonlinear career path, as kind of indicated in my bio. So I was in branding and advertising. I was in tourism. I've done all sorts of things. But what I found was the common thread of all these things was that I was able to pull out, kind of see the best in a product, in a company, in a destination, and now a person, and shine a light on what makes that special and what makes that compelling to draw others to them. So I've always had a knack for doing that. I'm a very curious person. And that curiosity, the observation, that shy little Amy who was super creative but was always watching, was super sensitive, very empathetic. All of those things that, I was called too sensitive as a child now serve me really well. I'm able to take that and make it my superpower. The listening, the observing, the taking in of information and translating that back into something that is meaningful and draws others to somebody else and lets them see kind of the best is what I do. And so I'm delighted, though, that now I get to do that with other human beings and work one-on-one with folks and have partnerships, often with people that are very different than me. But I think that that is the magic, because you want to work with someone who's complementary to you, not identical to you. And I get to do that every day with fascinating people from all over the world.
No doubt. That's great. Cameron jumped in to shake his head because, yeah, Steve and Cameron are way different from each other.
listen, because Steve will often say, "Oh, I get, maybe he gets on my nerves, or I get up," but I never feel that. I always feel like Steve's a beast, and if you've ever done something with Steve, for those that are lucky to, you'll see immediately he is a communication monster, absolute beast. The amount of emails and one-to-one meetings that he's able to jump into, I just sit there and my head's on a swivel, like just thinking about it, because it's like I can't believe that he's got all this stuff going on. We lost Amy, so hopefully she's jumping back.
Yeah, maybe it's just technical challenge. I was the one with the technical challenges before. I appreciate the kind words. Listen, we are looking to monetize the show, but that compliment is definitely more than worthy. And more,
she's there.
I don't know what happened. Sorry. I'm not dipping. I'm like,
No worries. No worries. Well, you said something, Amy, before, which, again, thank you, Cameron, for the kind words. But listen, you're a beast as well. I mean, what you do, and I was blessed to be able to go to the new command center for Toth event staffing and photo shoot there, and you have your number one, Margaret, and just you're a beast as well, in your own way. And family, he's got 17 kids. I don't know how he does everything he does. So we all have our strengths, right? But Amy, you said something before, and that is, and I have a signature talk about it, which is, in our weakness, there's power, right? And it's turning the things that we have that were challenges, issues, weaknesses, insecurities, whatever, and then making them into something that becomes, like you said, your superpowers. So kudos to you that you're able to do that, because other people, not everyone does that. Some people, they wallow in that. They kind of they just they get off on being the woe is me mentality. And I love when people I'm a big be a victor, not a victim kind of mentality, right? Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, good stuff. So we want to get into this, and this particular question is near and dear to my heart. And I think Cameron also shares in it, and the power of words. So hashtag words community. And we're going to start to get into this next section of this topic, which, you say, and this is, straight from you, Amy, right? You say that stories we tell ourselves are the most important words you speak. Mm-hmm. Can you dig into that and tell us why that is?
Well,
and Amy, before you jump into that, because I think that's really good, right? Stephanie Lewis jumped in here, and I love the fact that she did. She says, I help postmenopausal women with pain and autoimmune issues find relief through diet and lifestyle changes. So as you're answering this question, I'd love you to talk to our audience, Yolanda, Matthew, everybody here, what are ways in instances like this where we can begin to tell our stories? Because I don't know Stephanie Lewis, and she's telling me that she helps postmenopausal women, but I think one of the things that you're probably going to talk about in terms of words is that's great, that's what she does. but we do business with people we know, like, and trust, and stories are a big part of that. And so what can Stephanie do and our folks here do to sort of help people immediately get to know the type of people they are, so we know to reach out to them and partnership and that sort of thing?
Sure.
And
There's a lot to unpack there.
And I just want to just shout out, today is, I think it's National Women's Day. Am I
International
correct?
International, yeah.
International. So shout out to the ladies, and blessed that you are all in our lives. So, and we have a pretty large ladies population in terms of our audience and our communities. So we appreciate everybody. But let's get into that topic, Amy. I don't want to sidetrack us here. I just want to acknowledge that before the show is too deep.
Sure. Okay. So words have power. Now, as a writer, I firmly believe this with every fiber of my being, because words have the power to do good and words have the power to do not so good. I mean, a lot of what's on social media, for instance, isn't necessarily what I would call using words for good, but words have power to build people up. Words have power to communicate and connect. Words have power to help us feel better about ourselves. So when I say that the stories we tell ourselves are the most important words we speak, it's because it really starts internally. How are we referring to ourselves? What are we telling ourselves? So for instance, for years, I never felt comfortable saying I'm a writer. I mean, today it's like, duh, right? This is what I do. And I've done it for years. But if you have a hard time sort of identifying and telling yourself things like I'm this, I'm that, or you fill your head with things like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm just fill in the blank, that adds up over time. And those stories circulate again and again and again in your head. And
I hate that word, just. That just word, using that in something they're doing, take it. I love that.
Yeah, it can be really detrimental. And sometimes the stories that we tell ourselves are words that are echoed or spoken by unsuspecting people in our lives. Like as a child, you might have a parent or a teacher say something that they don't think is really whatever, but you hold on to that, like a label, like you're too sensitive or you're too loud or you're too whatever. And then you come to, and they say it in such a way that it's a negative, you're too much. And those are the things like I was talking about earlier. If you flip those around, that can be your superpower, but it starts within, and it starts with the stories you tell yourself. So if you tell yourself, I am enough, I am talented, I am worthy, I am a writer. It wasn't until I actually admitted that to myself and could say that with confidence to myself that anyone else would believe it, right? Because if you don't believe it, why is anybody else going to believe it? It really starts within. So those stories we tell ourselves are the most powerful words that we're going to speak. And once we have that story in such a way that we believe it and it's empowering and it aligns with who we are and what we do best, then we can share that with others. And there will be no incongruence. It will be sort of, yes, this is who I am.
That's awesome. That's great. And by the way, I got to say, I love your animation. You might have a little Italian in you because I see you using your hands a lot. So
sure yeah, I'm Sicilian. So yeah, there's
all right,
that.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely. That's awesome. No, I agree. And it's interesting, right? So your focus of that, which I love, was on kind of how you self-affirm yourself or don't, right? And I do self-talk every morning. And, it's very specific on health goals, marital goals, relational goals, vision goals. There's a whole bunch of spiritual stuff, exactly of who I want to be. And it's interesting, 2, 3, 4 years later, since I started doing that, I'm becoming those things. It's amazing. It's just words are power. Like you said, words are seeds. And whether you plant good seed or bad seed, you plant a corn seed, you're going to get corn come up. You're not going to get apples, right? So whatever you plant, whatever you sow, you reap, right? And those words are seeds. So make sure you're being very conscious. I heard it said, if what you said was to come to fruition, for real, we'd be pretty careful about what we say, right? When we say stuff like, "Oh man, my head is killing me." I don't know if you want to say that, right? Things like that,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Cameron had mentioned one thing, and then we want to kind of move on unless you have something to add. But Cameron had mentioned something about, kind of your story in terms of your career and what you do. And, I know I see Parker on here. I appreciate that, Parker, being on here. Being in the financial services industry, right? Whatever we do, you can have different perspectives, right? I heard a story about a man who was walking on a construction site, and he looked at a guy who was laying down bricks, and he said to the man, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm laying bricks down. I'm a bricklayer." Okay. Walked to another guy down a little bit down, down further. He said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm putting up a wall." And then the third guy, same exact task. "What are you doing, sir?" He said, I'm helping build a cathedral." And it's the exact same task, but how are you articulating it? And, does your story, do what you do have an impact, right? Is it powerful, right? Versus, I sell insurance. Well, maybe I help save lives or whatever. Again, I don't, what I'm saying, I help change lives and people's, whatever. Okay. That's not my job right now to tell you what your story should be, but you should be conscious of that. Right. So.
Most definitely. That's perspective, right? Too. It's your mindset, how that works. And I think it speaks to being intentional with your words, right? That they do have power. So you should be choosy and choose wisely with those words, because they can have obviously an impact in how you see what your role is, but also how you impact the greater world around you.
No doubt. So I know Cameron's queued me up here. He's like, tell us. Okay. So we want to talk about this, and this I can't wait to get into, because I really believe there's some great value here. So listen good to what Amy's about to speak about. But we want you to talk to us about what you call the power trifecta. It looks like it's clarity, consistency, and discipline. So speak to that a little bit if you can.
Sure. So it sounds very boring. Everybody's looking for a hack, or how do I do this? And I swear this is what works. I call it the power trifecta because it does work. So the first is clarity. Clarity of message, of your offering, of your positioning, of your ideal client, of what you do and why it matters is essential. You put out a piece of writing, you have to have a reason behind that. If you are unclear, you'll confuse people. And if you confuse people, you will lose people. And you'll lose people that you want to do business with, because they're like, I don't have time for this. I don't get it. What is she trying to say? Who does she serve? What is she about? So clarity is essential. That's always the building block, the foundation. And with writing, I like to say the clarity, you need to have one clear takeaway for every piece of content that you put out there. A lot of people try to jam in too much. They're very excited, or they have a point of view on everything. And it's like, just narrow the focus. So that's clarity. The second is consistency. And this is the thing with writing and with content in particular, it's a long game. And those who are consistent, who show up and consistently put out, regularly share their wisdom, those are the ones that, will win in the long run, because everybody has a lot going on in their worlds, right? I mean, particularly on social media, your attention span is like this, right? Things come through your feeds, different things. And, it's not enough to capture somebody's attention once. You want to repeatedly keep showing up, keep sharing your message, keep sharing that clarity of who you serve, what you do, because eventually people will notice. They'll like, oh, okay, well, she keeps talking about these 3 topics, or she keeps, showing up here. And I kind of get that. And I will tell people, they'll say, well, yeah, I'm doing this, but I don't know if anyone's really listening. Well, people do. Trust me, there's always somebody out there who needs to hear what you have to say, but you need to say it repeatedly. You think you're saying it all the time, but somebody might just see it once or twice or whatever. So you need to keep showing up consistently. And
so I just want to just jump in, if you don't mind. And, Cameron gave me a little bit of mentorship on this one the other day. I'm going to shout out Cameron on this one. He, because our pillars of our show is to be authentic, to connect authentically, to be others focused, be a go-giver, to have the grit to overcome obstacles, and then build a community and growing your connections. Those are our 4 pillars. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, we don't speak about that a lot, enough. Right. And so he's right. And I realized that. And so it's just, you think you say it once or twice, right? A guy, a woman said said to her husband, "Hey, you don't love me." He said, "I told you once." And no, you got to say it a lot. You got to say it often, right? And
I said it in 2004. What, I
Yeah,
got to say it every year?
exactly.
Right.
But anyway, it's consistency. I love what you're saying there, because it's so true. And I'm starting to see that now. I mean, I created the Master Connector brand, which is more just a persona, and I believe it's starting to take some traction. People are starting to, but it happens over time, and so you gotta have patience. So consistency is going to require patience, right? You can't just expect it after a few weeks or a month to really take hold. It's got to be consistent, right? I'll let you continue. I just wanted to throw in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're seeing how that all kind of comes into play. The last bit is discipline. So there's discipline to make sure that you have the consistency, right? That you continue to show up and share your wisdom. But discipline also speaks to what you are sharing, right? So we've all known those people on LinkedIn who, they're sharing tons of stuff, but you might go, well, that's great, or I like that, or that's inspirational. But what does she do, right? What if you have a scattered approach, right? Again, you're going to confuse people, or they're not really clear. So I use discipline as a way to make sure that you stay in your zone of genius, right? And when I work with my social media ghostwriting clients, I will have them pick 3 buckets, right? That we keep their stuff aligned to, these 3 buckets. Now, it can be something broad like leadership, say, or entrepreneurship, right? So a lot can fit under those buckets, but what we don't want is one day they're talking about being a founder, the next day they're talking about their breakfast, the next day they're talking about blockchain, the next day they're talking, so it's this whole like, what is this? Because ideally with your content and anything that you put out, you want to make it super easy for your intended audience to instantly understand who you are, what you're about, what matters most, who you serve, and does that apply to them? Are they part of that world? You want them to self-select yes, or if that's not really who they are about or what they want, that they can just drop away. That's helpful too. But you need to have the discipline to stay in your wheelhouse, to stay in those things and consistently show up and share in those topic areas where you are an expert. Then people will see you as one.
Absolutely, for sure. That's awesome. No, I love that, and I love what you're saying, because again, similar to what you're speaking about, with our show, we had some shows that were so off the mark, and Cameron said, "Hey, this is before we came up with the pillars." He's like, "We need to kind of," because we did one on like recovery, as in like, AA, NA, OA, which nothing wrong with that. We have family members and people that that's been incredible for, but it was a little bit way outside of what we were about on the show. So being disciplined to staying in your wheelhouse and is so important. So appreciate that. So we want to talk about, because we're getting to the tail end of this show here, we want to talk about don'ts. And do you have anything? And so hashtag don'ts community, DONTS. You don't have to worry about the apostrophe. But any don'ts that you recommend that we look to avoid in regards to telling your story, communication, etc.
So this is going to sound counterintuitive, but your story isn't about you. Ultimately, you want it to be about your intended audience, right? So it is about you. So you can say what I do, whatever, but you want to talk about why it's relevant to that intended audience. Why should they care? And you want to make it really, really easy for them to instantly understand why they should and why they do. So that's one tip. I would say the other thing is avoid being too salesy, right, with your content. Nobody likes that. Everyone can see through that sort of like, oh, it's another self-promotional post. Who cares? Like, it's not like, I don't want that. I would say serve, don't sell. And that's not mine. It's from a good friend of mine, but I love bringing that up because it's an easy way to remember that you're there to serve the audience with some sort of valuable insight or experience that they can use in their lives. It's not about selling yourself to them. And I would say the other thing is to engage, right? So if you go to the trouble to put something together, to share something, and somebody actually comments on that, right? They take time and attention out of their day to do that. Acknowledge that. That is somebody who is interested, and you want to, The idea of social media, I think, is that it's not a one-way thing. It is you want to start a conversation. That's the social part of social media. And if somebody engages on your post and writes something or send you a message or something, you want to acknowledge that, at least say thank you, or maybe, that's great. I mean, you think, and then they know that you saw that, so few people actually engage with others. It baffles my mind. These are people who are interested. So make sure that you acknowledge that, and don't just post and ghost, right? Don't just put something up and walk away.
Absolutely. No doubt. Yeah, I love everything you said. Obviously, that's why we're having you on our show, because you're so aligned with what we're talking about, being others focused in that story. I've also heard it say, you're the superhero of your story, but the superheroes are about saving other people's lives, right? It's not about them pounding their chest, but it's because they're right. And so again, others focused. I love that.
Yeah.
So last question we want to get into as we close, and then maybe at the tail end of this, you could tell the community best way to reach you and anything else that you feel like is irrelevant. But we want to speak about benefits. So #benefits. Mm-hmm. And so, what, in your opinion, Amy, what's the benefit or some of the benefits of becoming a good storyteller?
Well, when you can tell a story, you'll draw your intended audience to you. Instead of selling them and kind of, pushing yourself on them, they will naturally be attracted to you. You'll be like a magnet for those people, right? And that comes into play because then people will seek you out. You are the expert. And that's another benefit, is people will see you, and it positions you as an expert. Draws others to you. It makes very clear your unique point of view, which again can draw the right people to you or repel the ones that aren't. And I think more than anything, it's about the know, like, and trust factor, right? When you're sharing things and you share a story well, people, oh, okay, I really like the way he thinks. I want to align with this person in some way, whether it is to connect with them, to follow what they have to say, to work with them ideally. You're going to put that out into the world and you're going to get that back. And stories connect with people on an emotional level. They resonate with people on a very deep level. Facts don't have a way of doing that. I'm sorry, they just don't. As much as you want to think you're a logical person, I'm sorry, you are an imperfect emotional human being. And that is what will ultimately you'll form a connection over. So stories are an excellent way to do that.
That's great. And the other thing I've heard in terms of stories, and then we're going to want you to tell people the best way to reach you. But stories, a couple things. Number one, it's not as effective if you pound your chest about why your services or you are good. But if you tell a story about a client that used your services and what they felt or the benefit, what they got from your services, that's way more effective. It's essentially a testimony that you just created yourself by telling that story, right? Mm-hmm. And you're also putting that potential client in that person's shoes, maybe even in your story, so to speak, right? Because they relate. Wow, okay, those are some challenges that I'm dealing with. I also found storytelling is a good way to correct people. By instead of telling them, you're wrong, you shouldn't do this, you can say, hey, it's interesting what you're dealing with. I remember I think about a story of somebody I knew who was in a similar situation, and I suggested this to that person, and they did this, and it helped them, right? So now I'm being able to, without saying you should do this, I said I did it with this person, I had a similar challenge, and it's better people skills, and people seem to take your information and receive it easier than it's so confrontational about you should do this, you should do that. So just some things I've seen as well.
Absolutely. No one likes being told what to do, but if they hear a sort of a relevant story that they can then do, it's like, oh, actually that could be helpful to me. It'll be much better received. You're right.
For sure. Well, tell our community, we loved having you on here, Amy. You're amazing. Tell us tell everyone the best way to reach you, connect with you, and we'll definitely have to have you on again for sure.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I am on most of the social media platforms, but LinkedIn is my heart and soul. I am here, and you can find me here. You can follow me here. You can send a connection request to me as well. On LinkedIn, I also have a weekly newsletter that comes out on Wednesday. So this morning's was the latest edition. That's called Momentum, and you can sign up for that here. Off of this platform, I am also on Twitter and Instagram, and I have another newsletter through Substack called Illuminate Me, and I'd love it if you'd follow me there. And if you're interested in learning more about my services, you can hit my website, which is amyblaschka.com, And everything else is connected there with my socials and my newsletters. So if you want one-stop shopping, I would start there. And you can reach out if you'd like to work together or interested in learning more.
Fantastic.
Right, so I just wanted to highlight the newsletter that you put out this morning, just so people can sort of see that. And then do me a favor while I'm showing this off, Amy, type the web address into the private chat box there, and I'll post that on the screen. And then we will lead out everybody with Crush It. Let me just throw this on the screen. So
and we want to recognize our sponsors too, right, sir?
Yeah, yes. And I also wanted, you said that if folks wanted to go to the other spot, what was that?
Substack? Yes,
Yeah,
I can put that in.
That's not a technology I'm familiar with, or a website I'm familiar with.
Yeah, it's an email newsletter. So you can go there, you can plug in your email, and those go out every Sunday morning. You'll get a weekly dose there. And let me add that to the private chat, and you'll get that. That's my Substack.
All right, there we go. So there's 4 ways to master the one thing best leaders can do in challenging times. So anybody that's linked on LinkedIn, you probably get a ton of newsletter requests. I say no to most of them just because most of them come to me unsolicited, and I don't even know if they're even publishing them. That Amy is somebody that actually publishes to their newsletter. It's not just a gimme on the email address and all that kind of stuff. So I really, really highly suggest that you subscribe to her newsletter. As you can see, I am right up in that little thing right there. Boom, right.
Thank you.
And 20,000, that's pretty impressive. Definitely a reason for folks to follow you in terms of telling those stories. And then in terms of the website, let me just get this up for folks to follow in the post. And then as Steve talked about, I will talk about my company for one brief second, because Toth Event Staffing does make this possible. So we'll shout out my crew there. We just did a registration event in January. That was a lot of fun. So you see us there, and that makes it possible for me to do fun. I was actually running over here late from doing activities, getting payroll processed and all that good stuff. We always like to lead out of the show the same
staff
way.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
We always count down to crush it. So folks that are watching with us, you know what to do. You're going to count down in the chat. Amy, we're going to put our hands up like this. We're going to count down from 5, and then we will see you next week. Same bat channel. We have on with us next week Nate Berman. No apologies. You be you, which is a great topic.
He's great. He's great.
Definitely in lines with
he speaks whatever he wants to speak. He's just
Love
there's
it.
no filter there. So, but it's gonna be great. But listen, before we crush it, we just want to tell you again, to all the ladies, women, you know, we appreciate you. We celebrate you today. Thank you for being here, everybody, our whole entire community. You are amazing. Again, our mission is to be the light, uplift, inspire, encourage. Make sure you share this out. Make sure you're telling your friends, and send this link to next week's. Link's already available. Go to masterconnector.show if you want to see and register for the next upcoming 5 or 6 weeks we have coming up. It's going to be incredible. So we appreciate you. Make sure you go inspire somebody today. And so again, Amy, thank you so much. We're gonna now count down to crush it, and hopefully now with my technology, I could actually lead this out. So, are you ready? Let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Crush it! All right, and in the theme of telling our story here, I got that video that we put up on LinkedIn. Enjoy, everybody. We'll see you next week. Same bad time, same bad time.